So in part 1 of this series, we went through 13 questions provided by you, the viewers, regarding metal and metal vinyl collecting, as well as some fun personal questions for me. Well, we're going to do that again because this is part 2, and that's what part 2s do, so definitely stick around. So Woodman Reviews writes, could you do a video wearing a sleeveless vest one time? Well, I could. There'll probably be one in a future video. Right now I'm actually working on a battle jacket. I've been working on it for a very long time. It's probably going to be more of a sort of hard rock kind of 80s thing. I'm also working on an actual metal one with death metal and thrash metal and all of that. Those are a long time coming, though. I'm an awful tailor of sorts. I may have to enlist someone else to do that because I can't sew for crap. I never could. So that'll be coming when it comes. But yeah, I do have one or two at this point, so that'll be coming. Vito de Toro writes, what was the first record you ever got, or the record you've had the longest? In part 1, I did mention it briefly. It was the Flash Gordon soundtrack. I was 12 years old. Sometimes I get confused between 12 and 13, but I was definitely 12. It was 1980. Saw the movie. My aunt had taken me to see it. This is in Worcester, Mass. And I loved the movie, fell in love with it instantly, literally had her take me to Strawberries Records and Tapes to immediately buy the soundtrack, which is great, by the way. There's a lot of Queen on it, of course, but there's also the composer, whoever the hell he is, and lots of little movie bits as well. I love soundtracks that do that. So I still love that soundtrack to this day, not to mention the movie. I've seen the movie I don't know how many times, and we'll watch it at the drop of a dime. If I'm at your house and you've got Flash Gordon, I'll be like, hell yeah, put that on, because that movie is just God to me. So there you go, Flash Gordon. So Tom Thurston writes, where do you stand on buying vintage vinyl versus a repress / reissue / remastered, etc.? I generally prefer an OG copy of a classic album, the vintage metal in particular, especially bands I love. But some OGs are fairly expensive. Some of you probably figured that out, whether it's on eBay or Discogs or wherever. So sometimes I have to compromise. It depends on the album. There have been some earache reissues from albums from the early 90s that I bought reissues from because the originals are too much. I just can't afford them. So sometimes you have to go that route. I will buy reissues typically if there are bonus records with bonus content that's appealing, but it has to be really compelling. Sometimes it's not. So I'll sometimes do that. And that's sort of a special edition. That also leaves the door open to buy the original anyways. I tend not to like re-recorded versions of albums. There are exceptions, of course. I mentioned Diamond Head doing Lightning to the Nations. I also didn't mind Testament revisiting their classic material on First Strike Still Deadly. But those are really exceptions to the rules. Typically, I don't like when bands revisit their stuff on another album. So there you go. So Seahorn writes, how do you store your vinyl, inner, outer sleeves, etc.? And yes, please explain the t-shirt over dress shirt thing. You totally pull it off, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't curious about that. So first of all, about storing vinyl, I did a whole video on inner and outer sleeves. I think it's called outer and inner sleeve protection for your vinyl records. You can find it, I think it's in the specials and vlogs playlist, so you should watch that. I go into that in depth about that subject in particular. As for the t-shirt over the dress shirt thing, way back I was wearing concert t-shirts as a teenager and in my 20s, and then probably somewhere in my later 20s, I started experimenting with other clothes. Maybe I got bored at the time, so I started wearing dressier stuff. And it was dressy, but in a sort of 1930s sense. So there were pocket watches and vests and stuff like that. Probably amused by that thought for those who don't know me to imagine that, but it's true. I did that through the late 90s, I feel, till about maybe 10 years ago. And then maybe a little less than 10 years ago. And then I thought to myself, you know what? I miss concert t-shirts a lot. I miss t-shirts in general. So I liked this dress shirt thing. And I liked this concert shirt thing. Why do I have to choose? And of course I didn't. So I get to wear dress shirts with concert shirts together at the same time. And that might seem kooky to some. Other people are more used to it through other people doing it. I don't have a connection to other people doing it. It was just something I thought looked great. So it's what I do now. Now I get the best of both worlds, and I didn't have to really get rid of one or the other. So that's the story. Yo, I Am Here writes, do you have any favorite modern metal bands? Obviously, you love the classic bands, but are there any bands that started releasing albums after the 2000s started? Well, I'm going to name some bands that are new to me. Some of them might have just barely come in the 2000s. Some might be a tiny bit older than that. But I have my Apple Music list pulled up right now on incoming albums, as I call them. Let's see. Let's take a look here. Convocation with Scars Across. I've taken an interest in that album. The new Cryptosis album is really doing a lot for me. That's Bionic Swarm. You should probably check that out. Looking for this Grief Collector with End Delirium. Looks pretty cool. I've been enjoying that. I've been enjoying Lightfield Reverie a bit. They're kind of a gothic ambient kind of thing. Another World is the album there. Just scanning through another. Some of these bands are a little older, like Soul Burn and Vreed. That's pronounced correctly, but that's what I'm looking at right now. And yeah, so new bands for sure, modern metal bands. You should be listening to them no matter how old you are. Weston Winkle writes, could you show us something you want to talk about but haven't had the chance to yet? Well, Weston, you didn't specifically mention vinyl, so I'm going to take a bit of a license here and show you this. This is Paul Stanley with One Live Kiss. This is a solo album tour he did in the mid-aughts. Does a lot of cool stuff on this one. He does some stuff from his 1978 solo album. He does stuff from Live to Win, which is his solo album in the mid-aughts in support of this. He also does a bunch of Kiss songs that he wrote. This is just Paul Stanley with other musicians. There are no other Kiss members here, but it's an amazing concert. It's shot really well. The sound is good. And let's be honest, Paul Stanley is the best songwriter in Kiss. He's clearly the talent in that department in the band. So he carries that over to his solo stuff. His solo stuff is really worth watching. I really dig it quite a bit. So there you go. Paul Stanley, One Live Kiss. Rick Sanchez writes, where do you find the vinyls that are not in print anymore? For example, where would I find Overkill's Years of Decay? There's a couple of things there. First, let's talk about Years of Decay. First of all, great Overkill album. I had a hard time finding that myself. In fact, I had a hard time finding a US print of it. So I went with the European print. Megaforce Worldwide, of course, is also worldwide. So you can get a European version of an American band's album pretty easily. I had to do that with The Dark from Metal Church as well because the US pressings of them were kind of pricey, but the European ones were not. Even with shipping, I still had a bit of a deal. So that's the route I went for that album. Otherwise, you're going to pay a bit. And obviously, it seems like you've probably already run into that. So that's what I did. Finding vinyl that's not in print anymore, online probably we're talking. Sometimes you can luck out with record stores. I do hit the bins every once in a while, but that's obviously a dice toss. I go to Discogs a lot, discogs.com. I have an account there, and I do a lot of my buying there for those types of albums. You can go to eBay. I don't go to eBay because I'm really not convinced that the sellers are really worthwhile in that sense. I think what happens on Discogs is that, of course I know what happens on Discogs, people are only selling music. You know, on eBay, people are selling their couches and other crap that they have lying around. So they're not really vinyl experts or people who love vinyl necessarily. So they do the prices however they want to do them, and they don't always grade them well. That's an important factor. If you have different experiences with eBay, leave it in the comments. I'd love to know that because I don't trust eBay at all for that. I'd rather go to Discogs where I feel there's more accountability and people generally know more about vinyl, whether it's grading or pricing or all of that. So that's my attitude towards that. Sammy Orr writes, are you at all like me and feel that certain bands or metal subgenres sound better at night or in overcast weather rather than during the day with the sun shining? This can apply to either a live setting or just listening to albums. You know, I've never really thought about that too much, but I can see where that kind of environment would add to certain subgenres in particular. Some of the spookier stuff with the lights low, I can see that. When I was a kid, before I discovered heavy metal, I was listening to things like Gary Newman and the like. I was into some weird, new wavy, noisy stuff. And I used to turn the red lights on in my room. I was like 13, I guess. And that helped a lot, listening to the music. I kind of put myself in a sort of mindset or an environment. So I can very much imagine that carries over to metal, especially with a lot of the other subgenres. Yeah, for sure. I might even try it soon. Why not? Pick the right band and do it up. It does remind me also of shows. When I see a show at night, maybe indoors versus outside during the day, there's a huge difference. I was watching a clip from, I believe it was Bryce Talks Metal. He had shot an Accept show. It was outdoors, and I love Accept. It's great, but it was kind of, the vibe of it was there weren't a lot of people there, and there wasn't a lot of reaction as well, but it was outdoors, and it kind of ruined some of the mystique of bands when the stage is fully lit by outdoor light. There was also a lot of room on the stage where Marshall amps could have gone or something else, so it just seemed like a lot was missing in that shot, or that stage show in particular. And it reminded me a little bit of that moment in This Is Spinal Tap, where they do Jazz Odyssey. This is Mach 2, Spinal Tap. Hope you like our new direction. And I felt kind of sad both ways. But I think that only means that I need to see bands like that in much larger venues, probably at night. So you're probably right. Yeah. Carl Willigut writes, in your opinion, what are the absolute worst aspects of collecting records? Hell, I probably got to this before, I think in the previous video, but space constraints are a big one. You collect vinyl and it takes up a bunch of room. I'm willing to go through that. It doesn't bother me too much, but that's probably a big concern. The price these days is a big one too. I know Frank from Channel 33 RPM has talked a bunch about prices, and he even did a poll with his viewers on it, which is pretty cool. You should probably check that out. But yeah, so price and space are the two big ones. But again, I love my vinyl. I'm going to pay the money, and I'm going to find a place to put it. So there you go. Mark Waddington writes, I'm new to this, coming up to a year, approaching 100 albums. By the way, congratulations. And my setup is entry level, Audio-Technica LP60 turntable and some Edifier R98OT active speakers. What would you recommend upgrading first? Or would you say wait and upgrade both together? I'm no audiophile, but I do think my experience can be improved. And Mark has a second question I'll get to in a minute, but I want to answer this first one. So I started with an LP60 as well. In fact, there's one right behind me that you probably can't see. It's my my turntable I listen to at my desk. I have one out in my living room. It's a Fluence RT85. That's the one I upgraded to. I would say if you're more budget conscious, you should definitely look for a turntable that can take needle cartridges, that actually have them removable. That's kind of a big thing. And there are cheaper tables. I think Audio-Technica might make a table like that further up the line. I can't remember if the 120 has a removable head cartridge or not, but I would highly recommend you do that because a lot of the good sound is in the needle. So you can get a decent cartridge and then you can upgrade as you go up. If you pick Ortofon, you can go up to the red later, then up to the blue later and all that. So I would definitely concentrate on that first, finding that new turntable that has removable cartridges. As for the speakers, I think those are the same edifiers I have. I'm not really sure. I have some edifiers right over there and here. I haven't flipped them around to check, so there's that. You probably have bookcase speakers similar. It all depends. I live in a small place, so I'm not going to be getting big speakers right away because I just don't want to annoy the neighbors like that. I'm kind of considerate, I guess, in that way. So these I have are fine. I did get new speakers for my Fluence, some pretty cool Klipsch speakers. And I go through that, by the way, the Fluence and the Klipsch speakers in a video. I do an unboxing of the Fluence RT85. You can watch that if you haven't watched it already, and maybe that'll help a little bit as well. So that's what I have for that. Question 2 is, I know you subscribe to the Metalhead Box, and I signed up after seeing your videos on them, but what record, if any, have you received that has been a total surprise, like you never heard of them, but you loved it, and maybe you knew the band, but didn't have high expectations, but were blown away? I have 2 in particular that were pretty cool. One was actually, I already had the record, but if I had not, I would have been really, really excited about it. I have to name them. It's High Command with Beyond the Wall of Desolation, a great band from Worcester, Massachusetts, which is where I'm from originally. And that was a great find. I mean, I had 2 copies at that point then too, so I had to give my older one away to someone. But great band, and also Hazard with Delirium. I definitely discovered that band through the Metalhead Box. So you can discover them for sure. There were some reissues, of course. The Forced Entry's first album, The Forced Entry, first album, Uncertain Future. The reissue was cool because it had the Shore EP tacked onto it, so I was excited to get that. and the Corellian Isthmus from Amorphous, their first album. That was a reissue. That one's a little tougher to find in OG at a good price, so it's nice to see that reissued. I was happy to get that. Plus, it sparked my re-interest in Amorphous, because I hadn't heard them since the 90s. So, there's my answer. So, Rocket Rod writes, if you could only keep 10 albums in your collection, what would they be? So, first of all, I'm going to tell you flat out, I didn't plan this at all, so I'm just going to be going off the top of my head. So, 10 albums, and I need my fingers because clearly I'm 5 years old. Rain and Blood from Slayer, OG, have to hang on to that one. The first Overkill EP, definitely. Feel the Fire from Overkill as well. I'm going to do two from the same band. Have to have that. In fact, let's just continue with that. We've got Merciful Fate with their self-titled EP, as well as Melissa. Can't leave the house without those. Into Glory Ride from Manowar. I love that album so much. It's my favorite, one of my favorite Manowar albums. So that has to be on the list. Who else is it? Oh, this is tough. Just thinking quickly. The Testament from The Testament. How about The Legacy from Testament? Let's go with that. God, their albums I wish I had, but I don't on vinyl. Probably that Megaforce Kill 'Em All from Metallica. I couldn't leave the house without that. If the house was burning, I would be grabbing those for sure. What do I got? 2 left. Let's see. Probably Blizzard of Oz from Ozzy Osbourne. And, let's see. Maybe Highway to Hell from AC/DC. I love all those albums. I need those albums. So there it is. And David Ingram writes, well, I know you're a fan of horror movies, but how about sci-fi? Favorite films, classic and or modern? Oh, and your most favorite death metal vocalist? So, Dave, science fiction. I do love sci-fi as much as I love horror. Maybe not as much, but almost as much. I tend to like a lot of the stuff from my childhood. I think it'd be easy to say the first 3 Star Wars movies. I saw the first one when I was 8 years old. That was A New Hope. So those are cool. I loved sci-fi as a kid, though. I was watching Battlestar Galactica on TV and Buck Rogers. I wanted to see Alien really badly, but I was too young to get in the theater, and my mom wouldn't let me see it anyway. It's too violent. But probably one of my favorite sci-fi movies, especially from the 1970s, has to be Logan's Run. I mean, it doesn't hold up well now. It plays more like a TV movie these days, but my God, I love that future dystopian thing. I always have. Later, I loved it in books like Brave New World and Fahrenheit 451. And Jenny Agutters in that movie, my God, she's gorgeous. Between her and that and American Werewolf in London, my teenage fantasies are set. So definitely that. Favorite death metal vocalist. So like you, Dave, I do like the Cam Lee quite a bit. Those classic Massacre albums From Beyond and the EP after that. My God, what a great voice. He was highly influential on a lot of death metal vocalists, such as Dave. So he's definitely on the list. Excited to hear some new Massacre, by the way. Also, I got to go with David Vincent, especially in the early Morbid Angel stuff. I mean, I love Altars of Madness. I love Blessed of the Sick. I love Covenant. So, yeah. And I even love him in Ultimus, that band he's doing more or less now. I think he's still in it. But, yeah, so David Vincent. And you know what? Maybe that guy in Benediction isn't half bad either. Maybe. And that's the end of the Q&A. As I mentioned previously, I wanted to talk a bit more about the live streaming I'm going to be doing. So let's do that now. I'm thinking about once or twice a month, likely on Thursday nights from 8 to 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm almost dead set on that. Definitely Thursdays, because Thursday, for a couple reasons. One is Thursday is my secondary posting day anyways for videos, so it makes more sense. Also, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, I tend to be producing video for this channel, so I'm often busy. And Fridays and Saturdays are often popular nights for other live streams in the VC. There's some folks that are doing it then. I don't want to compete with that, so Thursday it is. I'm still waiting on some hardware to show up. I'm still waiting on a USB mic that I ordered from Amazon on Amazon Prime. We're on day 8 now, and I ordered it from the warehouse. I don't know why it's not here. I'm not going to bitch about that too much, but Once I get that mic, everything else is all set. I've been researching software and coders and all that stuff, so I'm pretty well set otherwise. As for the content of these streams, it's not going to be strictly Q&A like I originally proposed. I also want to do things like just hanging out and chatting. I mean, if you have questions, I'll have answers, and we'll do that. But I like the idea of people coming here and not having to come up with a bunch of smarty pants questions and just wanting to hang out and chat. I'm going to be doing some live chat stuff on screen, so there's going to be that. So, drop by and start chatting. I think that's the better way to do it. Less expectations on my viewership, and less expectations on me too, let's be honest. So let's do it that way. I am looking to start the live streaming in September. I have a birthday vacation coming up in August for 2 weeks, so I can't do it then. And then I have a bunch of videos I have to produce after that till the end of August. So September makes a lot more sense. I will post an update video as well as hitting all the social media accounts, giving you ample warning of when the first live stream will be. And if for some reason you haven't seen part 1 of this Q&A, I will provide a link in the description of this video. I will also leave it in the end screen, so you can just click on it and watch that as well. And of course, if this is your first time watching the Accusation Network channel, hi, my name's Matt. I do metal vinyl collecting videos once or twice a week, always on Mondays, sometimes on Thursdays. You should definitely check out my videos, check out the playlists. Got a lot of different kinds of stuff I do, so definitely check out those playlists in particular, and you can see what I'm up to. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, definitely give it a like. Also, share some videos with your friends, and subscribe to this channel. Those are 3 great ways to support the Accusation Network, and hoo boy do I love support. It keeps me going. Seriously. And as always, thank you for watching, and ever forward.